Hello and welcome to Fertility Springboard, the podcast series brought to you by Fertility Help Hub. I'm Eloise, founder of Fertility Help Hub, and over the series I will be bringing you conversations with some of the most influential and inspiring professionals and experts around the world to arm you with useful and empowering thoughts and resources to ease your fertility journey. And don't forget to sign up to the newsletter to make sure you don't miss out on anything. It's packed full of inspiring interviews, resources, discounts and offers, competitions, and real-life stories. Today I'm speaking to Linny from linspired.living, who is raising awareness around miscarriage. Hi Linny, how are you today from sunny LA?
Hi, Eloise. I'm doing great. As you mentioned, the weather's great here today.
I am quite jealous of the weather. It's not quite the same in London.
We do have summer year-round, so it seems.
Yeah. So thank you for joining me today. And for those of you who don't yet follow you or know much about your story or where you are in your conception journey, please could you introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about you?
Yes. So my name is Linny, and I have had 3 miscarriages. And, it's interesting because I used to say just losses. I had a hard time even saying the word miscarriage because there can be a lot of, taboo, I guess, around that topic. And so it took me some time to make peace with saying that word itself. And I have found that the more I say it, the easier it gets to talk about it, and the more normal it becomes. So I had 3 miscarriages and have learned a lot in the last year since I started my journey towards trying to become a mother. I have something called APS. It's antiphospholipid syndrome. It's a blood clotting disorder, and women who have this have about a 70 to 80% chance of either a miscarriage or stillborn if they're not medically monitored. So it took us some time to figure that out. Lots of testing, lots of doctor's appointments, and like I said, 3 losses. But we finally know what the issue seems to be, and now we're working towards getting a plan together so that the next time we try, hopefully we'll have better luck.
I'm so sorry for your losses, and I am pleased that you have hopefully found what might be the root cause, so that it can be hopefully treated. I mean, when you've been experiencing these losses or miscarriages, do you feel like they have felt, what have the emotions been like? Has it felt the same each time or has it felt different?
I'm so glad that you asked that. Each experience has been different. The first time I felt, I was very confused about how to feel. I didn't know how to gauge my own feelings. It was completely new territory. Something I was completely unprepared for. So I didn't know how to feel. And none of my feelings really made sense. I didn't know how to verbalize them. I didn't know how to express them. I didn't know how to tell my husband even exactly what I was feeling. I just knew that I felt lonely and lost and confused and like I was missing something. But it's so hard to express what it feels like to miss something that's not tangible, if that makes sense. But I think that even though it took me about 3 or 4 months to start to come to again, I went through grieving because I was 10 weeks. And I think that because of that, I felt like I was so close to the safe zone, as they say, the 12 weeks. Yeah. And I really thought I didn't have any symptoms that I was going to have a miscarriage. So I really thought everything was going to be okay. And it was a complete shock. I had some grieving that I needed to go through. But even though I grieved, I still felt very hopeful because I've heard of many women having miscarriages the first time and then going on to have a perfectly normal pregnancy the second time. And I thought, okay, that's going to be me. The odds of having recurrent miscarriage is a lot lower than just one miscarriage. So I thought, okay, let's be optimistic. Next time will be better. And I took prenatals and things like that, and kept trying to focus on nourishing my body and preparing myself for another pregnancy. And we actually waited 9 months before we tried again, because we were in the midst of planning a wedding.
Wow.
And my husband, and it's so interesting in hindsight now, because I initially wanted to try right away. And he, kind of said, okay, honey, sure, just to let me get through my moment. And then when I was normal again and better to talk to, he had a talk with me and said, maybe let's wait till after the wedding, because God forbid if this happens again, I don't want you to feel this way at our wedding. And I thought, okay, he's right. I should focus on the wedding and do that. So we waited 9 months, and we got pregnant at our wedding, actually, which seemed like a dream come true. I thought, okay, this is going to make up for that loss, and this is life giving back to us. We were just so excited. It seemed so perfect. And then about 6 weeks or so later, I started to spot, and we were tracking my HCG levels because of the fact that I had experienced some miscarriage before. And I had some complications after the first miscarriage. I ended up in the hospital because of bleeding. But again, my doctor thought, it was a fluke, and she wasn't sure that it meant that I had any kind of blood disorder.
Sorry, Linny, were you seeing a reproductive endocrinologist at this point?
So at that point, no. I was only seeing my OBGYN.
Mm-hmm.
So we hadn't done, we were under the assumption after the first miscarriage that it was just a fluke and that the next time would be better, because also there were no abnormalities in the tissue from the D&C that we did from the first miscarriage. So there was no indication that I should have had a miscarriage, which happens to many women, actually. And so my doctor just said, well, it was very unfortunate, but I think next time we'll be fine. But just to kind of backtrack a little bit, I had some complications with bleeding. And, she thought a lot of times after you give birth or you have a miscarriage, your period fluctuates. It takes some time to balance itself out again. And I was bleeding on and off a lot, but she thought that it was just my period figuring itself out. It wasn't till I eventually started to feel really sick, and I ended up passing out at home one day. I lost consciousness, and it was very hard to stay awake. And I called the emergency room, and they came to get me in an ambulance, and I had 2 blood transfusions and had to get a second D&C. But still at this point, she thought I just had maybe still particles left in, and that my body was trying to release it, and that's why that had happened. And I asked her to do, I have a friend who's a doctor who suggested that I should get checked for any blood clotting disorder. And I asked her to check, and she said she did and that everything seemed okay. I know there are many panels that can be done, so I just don't know if maybe she did check, but not for this particular issue. But we did find after the second miscarriage, that's when she got more alerted and thought, okay, something might be wrong. And that's when she referred me to the reproductive endocrinologist, and we ran more tests and found the antiphospholipid syndrome issue.
Gosh, you have been through so much. I am so sorry. And I just want to say at this point, your page and your blog and the way that you give hope to others and you talk so openly about it is so inspiring, like your name. And I just think that it's brilliant to be bringing awareness to something that is such a taboo subject, but I don't know why, because it is so common for people to experience loss, as you said. And for people who might be going through loss or recurrent miscarriage. It's to hear others who are battling with the same thing must make it a lot easier to bear, but comforting to know there are others out there feeling the same way.
Comforting is definitely the right word. And I think that's what initiated me doing this, because I had a hard time finding the right support on social media or websites, just resources. I had a hard time finding resources for women who have had miscarriages. And I thought, okay, 1 in 4 women experience this. So that's quite a lot. There have to be women out there that I can connect with, that I can feel a sense of community with. And I initially just shared because I was trying to connect with women. And then, I had so many women reach out to me after my first initial post a few months ago, where I shared that I had had a miscarriage during quarantine. That was my second miscarriage at the time. I went on to have one more after that. And I had so many women just reaching out, telling me, I've been through this and I feel so alone, and I appreciate you saying this. It just makes me feel supported to know that there's somebody out there that understands me. And I felt a sense of responsibility. I felt something in me lit up, and I just felt like I wanted to help those women. I wanted to make them feel, like I said, supported, and a sense of community, and encourage them, because this can be so hard. And I know what it's like to feel kind of defeated. And I've struggled to lift myself up, but I've done it. It's taken a lot of effort, but it's possible. And I'm now so passionate about helping women get back up again after this, because it knocks you down. It does, but you don't have to stay down. And that's, I think, my greatest goal through this, is to uplift women again and help them carry on, while still honoring all the feelings and the pain and the struggle, but being able to carry on with it, because life is beautiful. And we only get one life to live. I don't want anyone to get stuck in too long of a rut and miss out on life, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense. I think that's really a really good way to put it. And I totally admire what you're doing. And I think that, as you said, to give people these resources is so key in the support. I wanted to ask you about your support network. What have been the things that you have found have helped you cope and have picked you back up? And what kind of community or support network have you had around you during this time?
Well, first I'll preface by saying that I think that it's different for everybody, right? So what I have done may not work for somebody else. I just decided to be completely open about it, and that was very difficult at first. I was shaking the day that I posted for the first time on social media about my miscarriage, because I felt extremely vulnerable, and I didn't know what kind of response I was going to get or who was going to see that. And it just made me feel kind of naked to put something so personal out there. But it's become my new normal, and I've connected with a lot of women that have gone through similar experiences that are also sharing their stories on social media. And we talk about how easy it is for us now to talk about these things. Now we say these things so easily. The words don't have as much difficulty to say. I guess what I'm trying to say is the more you talk about it, it seems that the easier it gets to talk about. So for me, it was opening up so that people knew what I was going through, because after my first miscarriage, I didn't tell many people, and this was pre-COVID, so there were a lot of, gatherings and social events, things like that, and I had to just put on a brave face and pretend like I was okay. And I got tired of doing that. I didn't want to continue to, put a smile on my face when I was really crying at home at the end of the night. I got tired. It was exhausting. So it's helped me to just be real and be honest. And now I don't think there's anyone in my circle of family or friends that doesn't know what I'm going through. And because of that, it's opened the door for them to support me however they can. The more vocal I've become about it, the more they seem to feel comfortable to approach me about it, to talk about it. And I did receive, flowers and cards. One of my friends got a group of my friends together, and they all paid for a tree to be planted in honor of my losses in a national park near me. I'm an avid hiker, and we love being in the wilderness. So that was a very special gift. And they wrote me a letter and sent me this certificate that I could frame. And it was really beautiful. And they wouldn't have been able to do that for me had I not been open about what I was going through.
Totally. What an amazing group of friends to have thought about something that's so meaningful.
Yeah, and I think also I did a post after after I started sharing. One of the posts after that was sometimes, I think it was titled, "Some of the most hurtful words come with the best of intentions." And I talked about how people can say things that are very hurtful without meaning to. And I pointed out what statements people say that hurt the most. And then I spoke to women in it, saying, if you're going through something like this, we have to educate the people in our lives. This is new to them. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to handle this. So it's kind of it's unfortunate, but it's our job to tell them what we need from them. And I think that a lot of the people in my life read that, and it helped them know how to approach me. So I said, it doesn't help me when people say things like, everything happens for a reason, because it's so suggestive of then something went wrong, then I did something wrong. And it doesn't matter when you're going through a loss like that. You don't care what the reason is. It doesn't matter. It just hurts. And, there's not really much people can say other than, I'm so sorry and I'm here for you. If there's anything I can do when you're ready, I'm here for you. And just leave a space of love. Other than that, yeah, there's a lot of things people have said in passing, not necessarily my friends, but, acquaintances that you open up to, because I've become very vocal about it. So I've heard it all at this point. Or I've had women tell me that so-and-so said this to me. And yeah, people can say really hurtful things, but it's not intentional. And I think that's what's the most important thing to remember. They don't mean to hurt you, but so it's important for us to stand up for ourselves and say, that actually hurts when I hear that. And I'd rather you not say that to me. If you want to make me feel better, it's okay to just say, I'm thinking of you, or, I don't understand what you're going through, but I'm here for you if there's anything I can do.
Totally. And have you managed to say that to anyone face to face, or has it all been through education on social media?
I haven't really had to say that to any of my friends, but I have had to say that to some of my family members. I think that the closer you are with somebody, the easier it is to say things to them. So yeah, even like with my mom, she was trying so bad to make me feel better. She didn't know what to say, and I just had to tell her that there wasn't anything she could say. I just needed her to hold me and just be with me and just tell me that I was going to be okay someday, and that's it. Don't try to fix it. Don't, there's nothing that can be said. Just let me be in this, because it's a space that needs to be honored. It's a moment that needs to be honored. There's no getting through it quickly. For some, it's shorter. Others, it's faster. And that's okay. And I think it's important for me to say that. We all go through these experiences differently. You asked me if every miscarriage was the same, and I was trying to say each one was different and difficult in its own way. The first time was difficult because I'd never been through something like that, and I didn't know how to feel, but I was encouraged that the next time would be better. The second time was difficult because I didn't expect it to happen again, and I felt like my body was failing me. And the third time was just a complete shock. Like, are you kidding me? 3 times? But now I feel determined to be okay and get through this. The depression and anxiety that's attached to going through this can be debilitating. And I know what it feels like to feel kind of, like I said, knocked down. And I've just decided to do my part to honor my feelings, but try to do it while still walking through, because I don't want to miss out on more of my life because of this.
I totally admire you for being positive like that and looking at, life outside of trying to conceive, because I think having been there, it's so easy to feel like it defines you and that's all you can think about and it's all you want.
Oh, yeah.
You want to do everything in your power to make it happen. And it does feel like life stands still, and it does feel like you're missing out. And social events can be really, really tiring and hard when people are happy and you don't feel like that. And you'd give anything to be kind of in their headspace in a way. Do you feel like, and I'm going back to what you were saying about sometimes people saying things that might be a bit insensitive. I don't think that normally comes from a bad place. It's just people aren't educated to know what might be hurtful and what is supportive.
Yeah. So going back to that, I'd like to go over a few, maybe like 5 things that people say that maybe they can, if I say it, they'll recognize that might be hurtful for someone and they might not say it in the future to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, everything happens for a reason. It wasn't meant to be. That one's really tough. It's just not your time. That wasn't your baby. Your baby will come later.
Wow.
Just relax. It will happen when it's the right time. And at least you weren't that far along. Those are all really tough to hear.
Yeah, I can imagine. Just even hearing them makes me sort of shiver with the thought of how that would feel, because I mean, I'm obviously sensitive to this community, but for anyone, surely that is not going to be a helpful comment. But it's people, isn't it, trying to find something to say, and it might be because they're feeling anxious and they just feel awkward and don't really know what to say. I wanted to ask you about that because you said that at first you said loss or losses, and with time you say miscarriage. So how has that changed for you in terms of talking with that terminology and the difference of reaction?
Well, there's still my losses. I feel like I've lost something each time. But I don't feel so ashamed about saying miscarriage. I think that I've been able to understand that it's something that's happened to me, and not something that I did.
Why do you think you or people may feel a sense of shame with miscarriage?
Well, I definitely think that it's revolving around the fact that people don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And even my doctor said to me after when I was pregnant the second time, she said, don't tell anybody yet. Wait, because we're not in the clear yet. And we have built this culture, obviously, like, that was just her opinion, and I took it with a grain of salt because I'm going to make my own decisions and I know what's best for me when it comes to something like that. But even her saying that to me could be kind of dangerous for someone who has a lot more, gives a lot more authority to the doctors in their life.
Yes.
So, oh, well, my doctor said I shouldn't, so I won't, I knew that wasn't what I needed to do. So we, like I was saying, we created this culture of keeping it secret until it's safe. But then if something happens, you have nobody to go to for support because you've been keeping this secret. So now you have to tell somebody, hey, guess what? I was pregnant. I have good news and bad news. I was pregnant, but I'm having a miscarriage. And that's a lot to unload on somebody who didn't know that you were even going through a pregnancy in the first place.
Totally agree.
So we encourage keeping it a secret until it's safe, because I don't know why. I don't know why we make women feel like they shouldn't share it until it's safe, because you don't want to tell people in case you end up miscarrying. But then that means that you're left to deal with that completely by yourself.
Absolutely. And as you said, you said after your first loss and maybe after this, I'm not sure, but there's a sense of, was it something that I did or didn't do? And of course, that's not the case, but is that an emotion that you did feel, and how do you kind of overcome that?
Oh, absolutely. Especially after the first loss. The more, I've done a lot of research now to understand how all of this works, statistics, reading other women's stories. And I remember after my first loss, my doctor said, "Oh, it's common." And I thought, but why is it common? What are we doing? What are we drinking? What's in our water? Is it the environment? Is it pollution? Is it the chemicals? Why is this happening to so many women? And I've learned to understand that babies are miracles, and there are so many things that can go wrong while one of them is being created. And sometimes there are abnormalities or issues, and that's many times why women have miscarriages. It doesn't, unfortunately, not every embryo that's created will turn into a baby. So I've learned to make peace with that. And that's helped me relieve some of the guilt that I carried. But yeah, initially it was, what did I do wrong? Did I not did I not eat enough? Did I not, drink enough vitamins? Like, what did I do wrong? And I think that comes from a sense of trying to have control over it, because if you can pinpoint what you did wrong, then you can avoid doing it again, and therefore, raise your chances of it not happening to you again. That's where my blame came from, trying to find control, really. And once I accepted that these are things that just unfortunately happen, it gave me my peace back. But I will say there are definitely, I recommend for anybody that's struggling through recurrent loss or infertility to read the book, It Starts with the Egg. Yeah. It's one of the resources that I read to try to understand what I could do to optimize my egg quality, because it can make a difference. It's scary to say that, because I don't want anyone to put blame on themselves if they don't do something, if they didn't take a certain supplement and feel like, oh, that's why. But if you're looking to optimize your health and put yourself in a better position, there are lifestyle changes that can be made that can possibly help with fertility.
I think that's all great. Really, really helpful stuff that you've said. Thank you for sharing that. And actually, that book is one that is talked about a lot within the fertility community, isn't it? So how has your relationship been with your husband throughout this? How have you both been dealing with it, and how have things been together?
Well, I think that we are very fortunate that I have a background in psychology and I'm a certified relationship coach. So I have the tools to help me manage through this. But I always say, just because I have the tools doesn't mean I have a magic wand. I'm still human. So it's taken adjustments. I think primarily both of us just understanding that this is experienced differently from each perspective, right? Like, he has a different perspective than I have on this. Also, it's me going through hormonal changes and physical changes. So it takes a little bit of a heavier toll on me, just because there's more involved in the process for me. But still, there's a lot that I've learned about him too. And this feeling of like kind of helplessness, watching me as his wife going through this and really not feeling like there's much that he can do to make me feel better. So yeah, just talking about all of that has been important, and understanding that sometimes you're not going to hear what you want to hear. For instance, when we had our first loss and I wanted to try again immediately, and he needed to sit me down and have that conversation of maybe we should wait a little bit. That was hard. That was a hard conversation to have. I did not want to hear that. I was kind of blinded by my desire to have a baby again, to fill this void that I now felt. But he was right with what he said to me, and it was hard to hear it. And I cried and I was like, you don't want a baby. I had my moment. He was like, honey, hear me out. I think that it's for the best to wait a little bit. And as much as it hurt, it was true. And now I'm glad that we did, because if we were going to have another miscarriage, it would have happened, just before our wedding. And I probably wouldn't have felt great. I would have been really sad. And I, luckily wasn't focused on that. That didn't end up happening. And so I had a great wedding, and it was in this February on Valentine's Day, just weeks before COVID. And
Wow.
it was an amazing memory. We had a great time. It was a very intimate wedding, just I think 23 of us in Mexico. And those memories kind of keep me going. Those moments, I wouldn't have had that moment. So we ultimately made the right decision. But what I'm, trying to say is those conversations can be hard. So I think understanding that, communication isn't just talking about things. It's being prepared to say things that are hard and being prepared to hear things that you don't necessarily want to hear. Of course, with respect and kindness. But yeah, you have to be willing to give that safe space to each other, to be really honest about what you're thinking and what you're feeling. And I always suggest to go into those conversations and first say, okay, hey, we're going to talk about this right now, but let's just remember we're on the same page. We're a team. We're in this together. We have the best of intentions. So we're not, if I say something that hurts you, know that that's not my intention. But, just know that I'm coming from a good place.
It's great advice. Also, I hear people, I've actually interviewed a man around miscarriage, and his feeling was sometimes his perspective was sometimes it felt as though it was all about how was his partner. And he just wanted people to ask him how he was doing as well, because of course the woman, as you said, is experiencing it psychologically as well as physically.
Right.
Whereas there is for men that sense of lack of control and not knowing what to do or what to say to try and make it better, and feeling like they have no involvement in it, I guess.
Yeah, I think that that's why I'm saying it's so important to recognize they might experience it the same or differently, and creating that safe space for them is important. We do have to recognize that they are going through this with us. So I know some couples, it's different. Every relationship goes through this differently. Some women feel like their husbands mourn just as much as they do. Other women feel like their husbands are kind of disassociated from it. I get all sorts of messages from women going through this. And this is a great question, because one of the questions I get asked the most is, how do I deal with this with my relationship? Like, how do we get through this? Because most couples never have to know. Many couples never know what it's like to struggle with infertility or with miscarriage. You don't sign up to get married thinking that you're going to end up having a miscarriage or struggle with infertility. And So you don't have the tools. You don't know what that's going to be like. You're taught to talk about money and religion and, in-laws, things like that. So you're kind of mentally prepared for how you'll deal with that, but you don't prepare yourself to deal with this. So it's a day by day, step by step work in progress together.
I think that's great advice. Thank you for your openness. And I think that, as you said, your background in relationships and thinking about the psychological side of things really helps with that. So what's next? What are the next steps for you guys?
Well, it's been about 4 months since I had my last miscarriage, and I took some time to really get healthy. I went through depression and anxiety, and I had a really hard time admitting that to myself. I kept saying, I'm okay. But I lost, I'm a petite frame, and I lost, I was like 100 pounds. Normally I'm closer to 108, 110. So that's a lot for my body. I was sleeping a lot during the day, taking little cat naps, and just felt fatigued. And I started to see all the signs of, okay, I think I'm a little depressed. And I told my husband, this time it was me, I said, okay, let's wait. Let's wait a few months. I need to be me again. And I've just focused on feeling good mentally and feeling like myself again, aside from the fertility stuff, just finding things that make me feel like me again. And eating healthy, doing supplements, exercising, and trying to gain back my weight, which I have done. In the last 4 months, I'm back to 108, which makes me feel healthy. And that gives me confidence in my body. It gives me confidence in moving forward now. So we're actually going to start trying in the next few weeks when it's possible. And we'll see what happens. But I'm going into it optimistic and very hopeful. And I've just decided, as hard as it is, because it's not easy to not have anxiety about it. I have to work through it every day. But I'm going to focus on just being optimistic and positive and hope for the best. And if, unfortunately, something goes wrong, then I will deal with it then. But I have convinced myself that I need to believe that it can happen. And I need to believe in my body and in my future baby and create this energy in my body of receiving it. I feel like if I go into it terrified and thinking that it's not going to work, it just seems like I'm creating a hostile environment in my body. And I just don't feel like that's going to attract what I want. So I guess I'm using the power of manifestation, visualizing myself pregnant, visualizing myself holding my baby. I've even tried to visualize what it'll kind of look like, and just going into it thinking and hoping for the best. And obviously I'm not, I know that there's a possibility, but I will deal with it then. If it comes to that, then I'll cross that bridge when I get there. I don't want to put myself through the pain or sadness of something that hasn't happened yet. That's unfair to me. I've gone through enough already. So I want to enjoy this. I want to allow myself to enjoy trying and getting pregnant as much as I can, even though it like I said, that doesn't mean it's easy, but I just want to give myself that chance.
Your words are just amazing. I'm so glad that we've had this conversation, because just honestly listening to you, I just feel like it will, for so many people who are going through something similar, it will be just what they need to hear. So thank you for being so open and so honest, and for everything that you do to raise awareness around baby loss, miscarriage, and, to help break the stigma around it too. And wishing you and your husband all the best for what happens next. And thank you again for speaking today.
Oh, thank you so much. That makes me feel great. Helping women through this is definitely the silver lining. I never expected for this to happen the way that it has, but it definitely has become my purpose. I feel so passionate about encouraging women and helping them get through this and helping them see that life can be lived even after loss. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share this experience with you. I hope that anybody that needs this finds it and that it uplifts them and helps them feel just a little bit better.